Welcome to Love Lies Chronicles.
I never imagined I'd be standing in my own hallway, listening to my wife talk about me like I was nothing more than an obligation. The groceries felt heavier in my hands as I stood there, frozen. The plastic bags dug into my fingers, but I barely noticed. My mind was too busy replaying the words I had just heard. Love must be earned. No woman should just give it freely. Rachel's voice was casual, her tone indifferent, like she wasn't speaking about the man who had built a life with her, who had worked late hours to ensure she never had to worry about finances, who had always believed that love was something freely given, not a prize to be fought for. I shouldn't have been listening. I hadn't meant to. I had just stepped into the house, quietly making my way inside with the last of the groceries. She was sitting in the living room, curled up on the couch, phone pressed to her ear. She hadn't even noticed I was home yet. Men get complacent, she continued, laughing lightly. They think marriage is a guarantee. But why should we keep giving them our love if they don't constantly prove themselves? Something inside me twisted, something sharp and unfamiliar. I had never thought of love as something that needed to be proven over and over again. I thought it was built, nurtured, and reciprocated. Had I really been blind all these years? I remained still, absorbing each word, as her friend on the other end of the line murmured something in response. Rachel gave a soft chuckle. Daniel is a good man, don't get me wrong. But love isn't something you just hand out. If he wants it, he has to work for it. That was the moment something inside me cracked. I had spent years making Rachel's happiness a priority. I had planned romantic dates when she seemed stressed, surprised her with small gifts just because, and spent sleepless nights holding her when she felt anxious. But in her mind, none of that was enough. It never had been. I wasn't her partner. I was her employee, constantly performing for affection. I set the grocery bags down a little too hard. The sound must have startled her because she suddenly turned, eyes widening when she saw me standing there. For a moment, there was a flicker of something on her face, guilt, maybe, but she quickly masked it. "Oh, you're home," she said, her voice breezy as she adjusted her posture. "Why didn't you say something?" I forced a tight smile. Didn't want to interrupt. She didn't seem to catch the weight in my tone. Instead, she ended the call with a quick goodbye and turned to face me fully. I didn't realize it was getting late. "What took you so long?" I stared at her, searching for any sign of remorse, but she was as composed as ever. Had she really meant what she said? Had she always felt this way? My mind raced back to all the times she had been distant, all the moments when I felt like I was giving more than I was receiving. Had I misread those moments? Had she been waiting, expecting me to do more? I forced myself to speak. "Nothing. Just traffic." Rachel nodded, standing up and stretching. "I'm starving. What did you get?" I looked at the bags on the counter, filled with everything she liked. The thought made my stomach turn. Had she ever once noticed how much I catered to her? How much effort I put into making her happy? I took a slow breath, my fingers clenching at my sides. Something was different now. I didn't respond as she moved past me, casually rifling through the groceries. I just watched her, silent, as a realization settled deep into my bones. She didn't see me the way I saw her. I had spent our entire marriage believing we were a team, two people working toward the same future, standing side by side. But that wasn't how she saw it at all. To Rachel, love was a transaction. And for the first time, I wondered if I wanted to keep paying the price. I didn't wake up the next morning with some grand plan for revenge. There was no dramatic speech, no confrontation, no accusations or demands. I simply made a decision. I wasn't going to fight for her love anymore. For years, I had carried our marriage, sacrificed for it, nurtured it, worked tirelessly to keep it alive. I had given her everything, thinking we were in this together. But I was wrong. To Rachel, love wasn't a given. It wasn't something shared. It was a currency, something to be earned. And so, I stopped trying. It started with the small things. I didn't reach for her hand in the mornings. I didn't kiss her forehead when I left for work. I didn't ask how her day was. I simply let the silence settle where my effort used to be. And Rachel? At first, she didn't notice. Or maybe she did, but she assumed it was just a phase. Maybe I was tired. Maybe work was stressing me out. She didn't ask. She had grown comfortable in my consistency, in my unwavering dedication to her. She had never once considered that I could change. So I let her believe what she wanted. But I kept pulling back. One evening, about a week into my quiet withdrawal, I walked into the living room to find her sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone. Normally, I'd come home with a warm greeting. Maybe bring her a coffee or tell her a funny story about my day. But this time, I said nothing. I just walked past her, heading straight to the kitchen to get myself a drink. She glanced up briefly. "You okay?" I nodded, grabbing a glass of water. "Yeah." She frowned slightly, studying me for a second before turning back to her phone. And that was it. One weekend, and the lack of effort didn't bother her yet. That realization sat heavy in my chest. She had gotten so used to my presence, my giving, my constant effort, so much so that she didn't even question when it suddenly disappeared. She assumed I would always be there. The next few weeks followed the same pattern. I stopped initiating conversations. If she wanted to talk, she'd have to come to me. I stopped planning date nights. If she wanted to spend time together, she'd have to suggest it. I stopped doing all the small, thoughtful things she never seemed to acknowledge, the ones I had done without question for years. And, at first, she didn't react. She still expected things to be the same. But slowly, I could see the discomfort creeping in. She started noticing the silence, the lack of effort, the absence of attention. One night, I got into bed, rolled onto my side, and closed my eyes without saying goodnight. Rachel shifted beside me, restless. "You're not going to say anything?" she finally asked, her voice quiet in the dark. I didn't open my eyes. "About what?" "I don't know," she muttered. "Anything. You've been quiet lately." I took a deep breath, letting the weight of her words sink in. She wanted me to explain. She wanted me to fight, to reassure her, to beg for her attention. I wasn't going to. So I just said, "I guess I don't have much to say." I could feel her watching me, waiting for more. When she didn't get it, she sighed and turned away. And I fell asleep without another word. A month passed before I saw the first real crack in her confidence. We had fallen into a rhythm, a cold, distant one. I came home from work. She scrolled through her phone. We ate dinner in near silence. We went to bed. She expected me to break first. She expected me to reach for her, to bridge the growing gap. She didn't understand that I had already made my choice. One evening, she finally snapped. We were in the middle of dinner, sitting across from each other. The clinking of silverware against plates was the only sound between us. Then, suddenly, Rachel set down her fork and looked at me. "Are you mad at me?" I took a sip of my drink, keeping my expression neutral. "Why would I be mad?" She narrowed her eyes. "I don't know. You've just been different." I shrugged. "I guess I've been thinking a lot." Her brow furrowed. "About what?" I met her gaze. "About effort." Her lips parted slightly, her face shifting. I saw it, the flicker of unease. For the first time, she realized something had changed. I watched her, waiting to see if she'd own up to it. If she'd admit that she had taken me for granted. If she'd say, "I know I've been distant too. I know I should have given more." But she didn't. Instead, she scoffed. "You're being dramatic." And just like that, the moment passed. She dismissed it. Dismissed me. And that's when I knew. Rachel didn't think she had done anything wrong. She didn't believe I had any right to feel this way. She still thought love was something I was supposed to fight for, while she got to sit back and judge whether I was worthy enough to receive it. She still thought she held all the power. She had no idea she was losing me. The silence between us had changed. At first, it was a passive thing, an afterthought. Rachel assumed I was just in a mood, that my withdrawal was temporary, something that would fade if she ignored it long enough. But now? Now, it had weight. Now, she felt it. And for the first time in our marriage, she was the one chasing after me. It started subtly. She tested me, waiting for a reaction. One evening, as we sat on the couch, she let out a dramatic sigh, stretching lazily. "Ugh, I'm so bored." I barely looked up from my phone. "Then do something." She blinked at me. She had expected me to care, to offer suggestions, to suggest we do something together. But I didn't. Her expression flickered with something unreadable before she leaned back against the cushions, sulking. She was used to being the center of my attention. She didn't like it when she wasn't. Next, she tried picking fights. She would make small, snide remarks, hoping to push me into reacting. "You never help around the house anymore. You don't even try to hold a conversation. Are you just going to sit there like a statue?" Each time, I just shrugged. I let her words bounce off me, refusing to rise to the bait. I wasn't going to fight for her. Not anymore. The real shift happened one Friday night. She had gotten dressed up. Heels, a fitted dress, perfect hair. She had put effort into her appearance, something she hadn't done in months. "Some of the girls are going out," she said, casually checking her reflection in the mirror. "I might join them." I glanced up from the book I was reading. Okay, that was it. No jealousy, no curiosity, no have fun, or be safe. Nothing. And it bothered her. She lingered in front of the mirror, adjusting her earrings unnecessarily. You're really not going to ask where we're going? I flipped a page. Do I need to? A flash of irritation crossed her face. Wow. Okay. I could tell she had expected something else. She had wanted me to object, to make some comment, to show that I still cared. Instead, I had given her nothing. She ended up staying home. Her frustration grew. A week later, she tried another approach. We were in the kitchen, washing dishes side by side, when she bumped into me on purpose, her hip brushing against mine. A test. I simply stepped aside. Rachel cleared her throat. So, we haven't been together in a while. I didn't respond. She waited. Then, a little sharper, she added, you haven't even tried. I set down the plate I was holding and finally looked at her. Neither have you. She blinked, as if the thought had never occurred to her. She was so used to me being the one who initiated everything. Intimacy, affection, connection, that it had never crossed her mind that she had stopped making an effort too. And now that I wasn't chasing after her, she didn't know what to do. One night, her facade cracked. I was sitting on the couch, scrolling through my phone, when she suddenly grabbed the remote and turned off the TV. I looked up at her. She stood there, arms crossed, frustration painted all over her face. All right. Seriously, what is going on with you? I set my phone down, tilting my head. What do you mean? She let out an exasperated laugh. Don't play dumb, Daniel. You've been acting weird for weeks. I don't think I have. Yes, you have. You don't talk to me. You don't care what I do. You don't even. She stopped herself, taking a deep breath before lowering her voice. You don't even touch me anymore. Silence. I just watched her, waiting. She swallowed, arms tightening around herself. Are you mad at me? No. Then what is it? I leaned back against the couch, studying her. For years, I had been the one seeking validation, trying to prove myself worthy of her affection. And now here she was. The tables had turned. The weight of neglect, something I had felt for so long, was now on her shoulders. I could see the way it unsettled her, the way it made her question everything. And for the first time, I saw something in Rachel I had never seen before. Fear. She was afraid of what this meant. Afraid of what she had done. Afraid of losing something she had never imagined could be taken away. But I didn't reassure her. I didn't comfort her. I just stood up, walked past her, and said, I'm going to bed. And I left her standing there, alone, drowning in the silence she had once ignored. Rachel had always been confident, always in control. She was the type of woman who walked into a room and knew she held the power. But not anymore. Not with me. The more I pulled away, the more I saw the cracks forming in her composure. She wasn't used to this, to feeling unwanted, to feeling ignored. And she hated it. The breaking point came on a Saturday night. I was sitting at the dining table, finishing up some work, when Rachel walked in. She had dressed up, not in an obvious way, but enough that I noticed. Her hair was done, she had put on makeup, and she was wearing a fitted dress she usually saved for date nights. She stood across from me, fingers tapping lightly against the table. I made reservations for us, she said, her voice careful. That Italian place you like. I glanced up at her. Okay. Silence. Her brow furrowed slightly. So you want to go? I shrugged. You can go if you want. Rachel's lips parted slightly, as if she couldn't believe what she was hearing. I meant together, Daniel. I sighed, setting my pen down. Why? She let out a sharp, frustrated laugh. Because we're married? I leaned back in my chair, watching her. What changed? I asked. She blinked. What? You never planned things like this before, I said, keeping my tone even. What's different now? Her mouth opened, but no words came out. I had caught her. She didn't know how to explain it, how to admit that she was the one feeling the distance now. I saw the moment her frustration turned to anger. She took a deep breath, crossing her arms. You're acting like a child, Daniel. You're punishing me for something, and I don't even know what I did. I huffed a quiet laugh, shaking my head. You really don't, do you? Her jaw clenched. No, I don't. I stood up, facing her fully. Then let me remind you. I took a step closer, my voice steady. You said love has to be earned. Rachel's face paled. She knew where this was going. You said a man shouldn't expect love unless he's proving himself. I continued. You said marriage isn't a guarantee. She swallowed hard, but didn't interrupt. So I stopped proving myself, I said. I stopped trying to earn something that should have been given freely. And now you don't like how it feels. She took a shaky breath. That's not what I meant. Yes, it is. My words were firm, final. Rachel flinched, like she had been slapped. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then, in a broken voice, she whispered, I never stopped loving you. I let out a quiet sigh. Maybe not, but you sure as hell made me work for it. Her hands balled into fists. So what? This is payback? You want me to feel rejected? Ignored? Is that what this is? I shook my head. No, Rachel. This isn't about revenge. I gestured between us. This is what you created. Her breath hitched. You made love a transaction, I said. And when I stopped paying the price, the whole damn thing fell apart. Rachel's eyes filled with tears, but she wasn't crying yet. She was realizing, seeing it, feeling it. Everything I had felt for years, the exhaustion, the loneliness, the never-ending need to prove myself. She was drowning in it now, and there was no one to save her. She didn't say anything after that. She just stood there, her fingers gripping the edge of the table like it was the only thing keeping her upright. I didn't push. I didn't comfort her. I just walked past her, leaving her standing there in the ruins of what she had built. Because for the first time in our entire marriage, Rachel was the one left chasing after nothing. Rachel tried to fix things after that night. At first, it was subtle. She started cooking dinner more often, making meals she knew I liked. She left small gestures, like a cup of coffee on my desk in the morning, or a folded blanket on the couch when I stayed up late. She even started asking how my day was. But I didn't react, because I knew what this was. Desperation. She wasn't doing these things out of love. She was doing them because she was terrified of losing me. A week after our confrontation, she sat beside me on the couch one evening, curling her legs under herself. I was thinking, she said, voice hesitant. Maybe we should take a trip. Just the two of us. I kept my gaze on the TV. A trip? She nodded, trying to sound casual. Yeah, maybe a weekend getaway. Somewhere quiet. I could feel her watching me, searching for a reaction. But I just shrugged. I don't think that would change anything. Rachel inhaled sharply. Why not? I finally turned to her. Because this isn't about a vacation, Rachel. It's about us. Her face crumpled. That's what I'm trying to fix. I shook my head, letting out a slow breath. No, you're trying to patch a sinking ship. She flinched. I don't know what you want me to do. That's the problem, I said quietly. You never did. Rachel broke then. Her walls finally crumbled, her shoulders shaking as she dropped her face into her hands. I don't want to lose you, she whispered. I sighed, running a hand through my hair. It was too late for that. She had already lost me. That night, I packed my bags. Rachel sat on the edge of the bed, watching in silent devastation as I folded my clothes, zipped my suitcase, and grabbed my keys. She didn't argue. She didn't beg. She just sat there, tears streaking her face. I didn't mean it, she whispered. I didn't mean that you had to earn my love. I paused by the door, gripping the handle. I turned back, meeting her shattered gaze. Yes, you did, I said. You just never thought I'd stop trying. Her breath caught, her body trembling. I didn't wait for another word. I opened the door and walked out. Rachel watched helplessly as her marriage slipped through her fingers. Because for the first time, she understood. Love isn't something you should have to earn. It's something you should give. And once you make someone fight for it for too long, you might wake up one day to realize they've stopped fighting altogether.
Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments, and do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel.